going over the basics of forging. I'm going to go over what you may need if you wish to start doing this yourself and how some of the things work. If you're not super interested in this part, go ahead and skip over it. For those of you who have stayed, you're going to want something like a single burner forge. Super simple. You don't need to get something super big like a double burner or a triple burner. Just a single burner. Get you started. You're going to want an anvil. Doesn't have to be too big. Could be really any size, just as long as it works. You're going to want some flame retardant gloves, like welder's gloves. Similar for the apron. Ear protection and eye protection, for obvious reasons. One of the more important things is definitely the hammer. You're going to want yourself a flat and rounded end. A ball peen works pretty well if you don't have access to a normal forging hammer, but when you have a normal forging hammer, it's a lot easier with some of your things. The reason why it's so specific upon the requirements is because with the flat end on the forging hammer, it helps spread out the metal. Of course, it's going to leave marks because you're hitting it with the flat side. It's meant to bring it out, not make it look pretty yet. And then what you're going to want to do is make sure you have a rounded side. Rounded side smooths it out. Makes it look a lot nicer. Like that. Though of course you can still see some of the flat marks, but it's very nice to have a hammer like this. I promise you it will save you no trouble. Now that we went over the basics, make sure you get yourself something to light your forge with. And make sure you are able to turn it on before you start with any gas on this. Because it will flood the room and it will just catch fire. And it's a very bad idea to do. Also, you're going to want to get yourself some prongs. Doesn't matter what kind, just get some. I mean, this isn't super important if you're not doing it like crazy, but you're gonna want yourself a steel wire brush. Helps remove the scale. Helps a lot, actually. You don't need a vise, but a vise is very handy as well. Now, let's go ahead and get started. What I like to do is I prefer to put on the glasses just so it's a lot easier. Put on the glasses first before you put the listening protection, which you need because if you don't, and you're banging on the metal on this anvil, it's just going to absolutely destroy your hearing. It's so bad for you. Now let's get this sucker on.
dents in it and it just might ruin it, which I've obviously done. You know, it's good for me. But once you get used to things in a certain way, you can avoid it all. Even if the metal isn't blazing hot, it's still okay. is the round end. Moving is the flat end. Do not forget that. It's very important like that. I was watching YouTube videos on the understand. Pretty sure it's like Jason Knight or something like that. And he was working on a piece of metal kind of similar to this. And he was explaining about his hammer. About flat end moving. Round end moving. Must admit, the first time doing this stuff, I made an actual rebar knife, pretty simple. I spent like 7 hours working on it. It's a nice, proper gardening knife, so that you can like hack it afterwards while you're digging with it, or something like that. Nice curved handle, big piece of rebar. I just remember the day after I finished doing that, my wrists were so incredibly sore. I've never felt like this. It was just insane, but super satisfying. This stuff is so much fun. If you really get into it, sure, it takes some time to get everything together and it takes some time to do it, but it is so much fun. If you really do plan on doing something, I suggest you get yourself some water. Some water while you work, because you really don't want to be dehydrated. I think that wraps it up for today. If you have nowhere to set your blazing hot piece of metal, I'd suggest you just leave it in the forge well and it cools off. Something I'd suggest is you always keep your whole area clean, especially afterwards. That way you don't have to clean it up before you get back into it. Because it's such a pain with all this scale getting there, and sometimes it just magnetizes to any metals thing. Super big pain. Keep in mind, safety measures are the most important thing when it comes to this stuff. All right? It doesn't matter how much fun you're gonna have trying to be dangerous. Always have your safety stuff. Because it will save you a lifetime of pain and scars. And I promise you, you're gonna want to have it. But this wraps up today's video. That's fun. I hope you all enjoyed this just as I did. Have a nice day.